Hello and hi, everybody. It is Suzanne Worthley back with another episode of Energy Unleashed with my co-host, Kim Hess.
Hello,
Hey, Kim.
everyone.
How are ya?
Oh, good.
Good to
Well,
see you.
gloomy, but I'm really excited. Maybe the sun will come out this weekend sometime.
It is a gloomy day in Minnesota. I will say that. And this Minnesota weather is getting a little much right now. So anybody who is listening to this in other places and spaces across the country, we're up to our necks in snow and ice still,
Yeah,
right? It's a
right.
lot.
So
It's a
enjoy your
lot.
sunshine if you have it.
That's right. And funny enough, we are talking today about a client that did plant medicine, and we can't get a plant in our yard to even pop yet. So this is kind of a little bit of irony and timing there, right? Looking
It
out the
is.
window, it's like there's no way I even got a plant out there yet. And even if I tried, I wouldn't know what to do. So I had a client the other day that was super interesting, and she actually has done plant medicine before. So plant medicine would be things like a lot of people do ayahuasca.
Mhm.
And that oftentimes, well, it used to be done in South America more so than here. But now in the US, and actually, oddly, Kim, in Minnesota, there's a lot of people that are doing ayahuasca practices, which I think is kind of weird. But
Really?
yeah, I think that's kind of interesting because, well, we'll get into why I think that's maybe not so great in a minute here. But ayahuasca, mushrooms, psychedelics, anything. And sometimes it has to do with tobacco. Sometimes it has to do with other hallucinogenic plants. So there's a variety of plants that people use when they do plant medicine. There's also some shaman practices that use like a poisonous frog. For example, my shaman, Ronnie, that I work with when I'm in Peru, actually had a poisonous frog kind of a situation once that helped him through some issues, etc. So there are all kinds of practices when it comes to plant medicine. And I am going to say up front, take what resonates. I'm not here to change your truth, nor is Kim. We don't do that. It's not about that. I report the actual client session and I take my spin on it, and Kim unleashes it a little bit with questions and additions. And that's what this is about. So if you're into plant medicine, awesome, great. I, as a human being and somebody that actually traverses the multiverses, I do not choose to do anything in terms of medicines that will alter me in a psychedelic way, simply because I actually have kind of an ego when it comes to what I do with spirit. I prefer to know that I get to that realm without any enhancement, without any drug. I want to know when I'm seeing that guide, or I'm getting that download, or I'm seeing that animal totem, that I'm actually doing it because I have that capability and a skill set. And that's my Suzanne preference. That's how I believe. And so anybody that does plant medicine and believes in it, so be it. I think it's great for you. Awesome. It's just not my cup of tea. I'm just going to stick that out there right
So I have
now.
before you get going on this,
Yeah.
because my interpretation, I get that part of plant medicine,
Yeah.
but there's a whole nother side of plant medicine that has to do with healing with plants that are medicinal, that are
Yes.
not psychedelic,
That are
right?
not hallucinogenic or psychedelic. And we're going to jump into that because you had
Okay.
a situation in Sedona. So after I'm going to do this part, we'll jump to that because there is more options. And that I do. I take a lot of herbs, I take a lot of infusions and things like that. So that's a different category. This is strictly talking about this client did a what we would call journey. They call it journeying. And she did a journey for one day where she did three kinds of different plant medicines in one day. And I think that's a lot. I mean, I don't know if that's like a thing. I don't know if that's a normal thing because this is not my sandbox that I play in at all with myself nor my clients. So I'm just going to report what happened from the aspect of how she landed in my office. So I think it was probably a week or
I'm
so
sorry.
after.
It's hailing right now at our house. I'm looking out the window and it's raining hard with hail. So this is
Wow.
Minnesota. Welcome to Minnesota. I just,
Wow.
yeah,
I got nothing here. I'm
plant
just hanging.
medicine. Here we go. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well,
Anyway,
the
sorry to
gods
interrupt
are
you, but
talking. I was
yeah,
wondering why you were giggling. That's
I'm like,
funny.
oh my God, it's hailing.
What's that noise?
You're right. Right.
Move your car out into the driveway so you can get a
A new
new
one.
one. Okay,
We have one
kidding.
out there. It's not that big of hail, so
All right, crazies, let's get back
Yeah.
on track here.
Plant
So,
medicine. Sorry about
plant
that.
medicine. She came to me after she had done a journey with 3 different kinds of plant medicines in one day. Okay. Which I thought was astounding anyway. And I found, I mean, I started working with her. She booked probably a week and a half afterwards. The reason she booked with me is because she was feeling flat. She was feeling unmotivated. She was feeling stuck. She was feeling not in her body of sorts. And this gal is pretty well aware of, she's young, but she's pretty well aware of energy and she understands a lot. And she just knew something wasn't right. And she's worked with me before. So she explained her situation and what she had gone through. And she said, I asked her if her journeys were great or not. And she said that they were just kind of okay. They weren't like, you know, totally earth shattering or anything. Cause a lot of times you'll go through these massive journeys and get lots of downloads or clarity, etc. That's the point, at least, right? And so, but post it for almost a week and a half, she was feeling like completely unplugged and she didn't know what was going on. Nor did I when I started, because again, this isn't where I play. Plant medicine isn't where I play. So it took me a moment or two to get into her field. And this was a remote session. So I hang up during remote and I will scan and do work and I will get into their body and their fields and see what's happening. This was so astounding to me and almost a little nerve-wracking in that the first plant medicine journey that she was on takes the human through I want to say kind of an alternate timeline, because you're out of your body and you're experiencing in the collective. Okay. So it's similar to being in the dream state in the 4D where you're out and you're journeying. You're connecting to 2D, which is plant and animal kingdom, but you're probably most likely traversing in 4D. So you're in 2 and 4 when your human body is in 3. Okay. So typically this is okay if your shaman experience gets you fully back in your body. And I'm not knocking this girl and I'm not knocking her practitioner. I'm talking the process. When we get back into the body, the actual body, then we are back into our 3D grounded self and we release those realms. Well, what had happened to this gal, she journeyed in the morning, never released it fully, did tobacco in the midday, and tobacco is more like a kind of like a snorting or a snuffing of that. I'm not sure what that did or was supposed to do. She said that didn't affect her a whole lot. But the last one was the mushroom, psychedelic mushroom one, where I can't remember the name of the first one and it really doesn't even matter. But the last one I do remember, she said, was shrooms. And that one was pretty powerful, she said. But what happened is she never got out of the alternate timelines in either journey. She did not finish the first journey in completion to come fully back into her body. So her 3D body was struggling because part of her was still out in the experience of being in the hallucinogenic. Then she adds another layer on top of it. So this poor little gal in human form for the next week and a half was intertwined in multi-dimensions. And this doesn't sound as, I mean, it sounds crazy, but it is something that is going to be happening more and more because our world's dimensional frequencies, the dimensions used to be very succinct. I taught it like a layer cake with frosting in between each layer of the dimension. Now, the layer cake is still there, but the frosting's gone. We are down to like an egg wash. It is nothing in between dimensions. So we have the ability already, without being in a hallucinogenic state, we have the ability to get stuck and traverse in between multi-dimensions. And it's very confusing and it's very disturbing to the human body. And it kind of freaks the head out a lot. And these will be small blips. But when we had the hallucinogenic tag on here, she was staying in that journey and then overlapped another journey, all entwined with her own human 3D self. Hence why nothing was happening for her, because she was in almost like the 0 point, because she was nowhere.
That's so crazy. I'm just mentally trying to understand that, is because like you said, the veils are so thin between the dimensions now, right? Or
Yes.
But to be out of your body in 2 different dimensions at the same time, which I guess, okay, that makes more sense than I was thinking as you were talking about it. But when you don't return, that's the issue. She
Correct.
didn't close it out. When you say finish, she didn't finish her journey. What does that mean?
Well, two things. I think this is the other reason why I wanted to podcast on this one. What I would like to really go deeper on, and what we call unleash, is really unleashing the information of a plant journey. Typically is something, if we are doing it in the, and I don't want to say right way, because there is no right? I mean, everyone's right version of right is right. But typically speaking, one wants to get ready for a journey if they're going to go deep. And for example, Kim and I are both cleansing right now as in our own worlds. And I've been pre-cleansing for almost 5 full days before I'm even going into a deep cleanse, which means I'm tailoring down my so-called normal Suzanne eating habits, drinking habits, whatever habits, and tapering down so that the actual journey of going super deep in this cleanse, which is a really deep one for a month, is not going to whack my system out. Okay. You are doing a different kind of a cleanse, which is similar in that your cleanse is similar, but your cleanse, what I'm doing 1 week at a time, you're doing 1 month at a time. So you're even stretching it out more and differently, which is awesome. So we're experimenting like that. So what that means is we're prepping for the process. This is important in terms of plant medicine because most people don't understand. Ayahuasca, for example, it is recommended to at least 6 months to, if not 8 months to a year, cleanse and purge the body so that the body itself can let the plant medicine work, so that the body itself is merging and taking on that Devic element to heal versus have that boom that's going to happen if we go into a cleanse without pre-cleansing. Do you see? Yeah. And so this is something that I don't think people are aware of because it's kind of become this new buzz thing. You know, I swear to God, it reminded me the other day of, you remember when Botox was a hot thing and now you're having Botox parties? I mean, that was just so bizarre to me.
Obviously, I didn't go to that party, but
nor did I. But a lot of people were having Botox parties. So now they're having ayahuasca parties, which to me is like, what? That's crazy.
It's not a party situation. It's so intense. I've watched like documentaries on ayahuasca and some of that are just in my gut, I know I shouldn't do it. I don't
it's
know.
A personal choice. It really gets to be a personal choice. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong because many people do lots and lots of ayahuasca and have wonderful relationships. Ayahuasca becomes a Devic deity, an entity, meaning ayahuasca is her own essence. It's an essence in the Devic realm, and we work with that, and that's awesome. However, if you choose to, you can learn how to download that and work with it without doing the actual process also. So these are all choices. Nothing's right or wrong. My warning and why we're unleashing this is that it is critical for us to understand part of plant journeying is to get to the dark night of the soul, is to get to the things that are traumatizing me. This is why it is so successful with vets, for example, if it is done correctly. This is why it is successful for people that have had a lot of trauma, if it is monitored successfully. Right. But when we're doing ayahuasca parties or we're just hanging out, we're doing a popper, we're microdosing it all, it gets a little out of control in terms of you don't necessarily go deep enough into the dark night of the soul, and you don't get to fully do that work. And hence you don't necessarily always come out of the process. And this is what was happening to this client. It was tipping the scales a titch into dark night. I think she had more dark night on the second, the shrooms one, but the first one was still not deep enough to even make sense to the second one. And so this is very difficult on the human that's standing in between it all. Right?
Yeah, I can't imagine that. That's what the human body is fighting. I'm sure it's the energy. Your energy is trying to bring everything back in and to heal whatever. And it can't find that person or bring it back to do it.
And most of the time, if we don't have an absolutely excellent, wonderful facilitator for our ayahuasca journey, we can really lose that space also, because it's like when I do events, when I do anything with energy or paranormal, it is Suzanne's job to hold the energy of that entire event. That's my job, is to be monitoring and watching and keeping it safe and making sure everyone's on task And if they slip and they're ungrounded, that's my job. So it's similar to the facilitator of ayahuasca to be responsible for that. And I think that the more ayahuasca is becoming mainstream, or plant medicines or shrooms are doing, let's do a journey together, you don't have that facilitator who is necessarily keeping an eye on that space holding. And
Right.
that's really, really important.
Oh my gosh. I
Does that
have
make
not
sense?
heard of these parties. That's so interesting. Wow.
Well, and it will open up a field. And this is, again, when we have a situation of hallucinogenics, which then is not being held in space. So what that means, again, is the facilitator is not doing anything. They're completely clean and sober, and they are holding the space for everybody that is journeying or learning. That's what I do when we're doing these events. If I don't hold that, especially if it's a paranormal event, we have now raised the vibration with that plant medicine frequency resonance. And we can, if the space isn't held, be hijacked or infiltrated by negative entities that will then parasite or hijack onto that attendee.
Oh, that makes sense. Totally. Because you're vulnerable at that point.
Right.
Right. You're not set. Your boundaries aren't there. You're not aware.
Right.
Wow.
And so these can be very hijackable. So not only can the client feel unplugged and sort of flattened, deadened like mine did, but they can also go off the rails completely different because they're fully hijacked. And that's super dangerous.
Great. So this person wasn't hijacked, but
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, this one wasn't. I have worked with lots and lots of people who have not gotten back to where they wanted to be from an ayahuasca experience. And most of the time it's because it wasn't done in a actual Peruvian or Chilean or wherever, basically all I know is South American jungle medicine. That's the only reference I have for a frame of reference on this, because of when we go to Peru. Yeah, even my shamans in Peru, my shamans that I work with are mountain shamans. They're Queros, that they do not do jungle medicine. They don't do the ayahuasca. And that's another personal choice for them, which is awesome. And the jungle people do it, and that's fine too. But as long as it's in that situation where you are working through the entire dark night of the soul, a lot of it has to do with throwing up. A lot of it has to do with purging in terms of vomit, and having the actual vomit move through the body and come out as a purge. And I think a lot of these kitschy, more boutique versions are not necessarily going through the whole purge.
Yeah.
And so that's like stirring the pot and then leaving.
Right.
And that can be extremely dangerous.
I just can't imagine your life when you're not fully in there and you've left part of you behind.
Yes.
What kind of choices you make, how you behave in your life, all of it changes because you're not.
And
there.
these things happen more, Kim, than just plant medicine. These will be fractalizations of ourself. Right. And so if we think of ourselves as fractaled, if I'm abused, I'm fractaled. If I have horror and trauma, I'm fractaled. So oftentimes we have a fractal of us, which is a soul remnant that can go out of our field and hang in the ethers. That's why this was easy for me to find on this client, because I do, as a practitioner, soul retrieval. I do always look for any fractalizations of my client that are hanging in the ethers due to trauma or something that happened to them that they don't want to deal with. These are very important to find, because if I keep a fractal out of my essence as a Suzanne incarnation, and then this body chooses to leave this plane, I die in human form. I go back to my soul self. I'm not 100% in the light to go back home. So I go back to my soul self. I make other choices on incarnations, and that fractal is still kind of off and running. It's very dangerous. It's very difficult.
Dangerous. Yeah. And then what happens when you reincarnate? Like,
right. You got a crack in your fractal even there. So it keeps going. And so these are times right now, or when we want to, if we choose, to retrieve our fractals in every way, shape, or form, whether they're a soul fractal or my general essence of my own body energy. So we can even bring this down, and we can dummy this down to, oh, well, I had a really bad marriage, and he and I were really codependently horrible to one another, and I finally got away from him, but I was so broken. that I'm corded and fractaled with him. So this isn't as crazy as it sounds, because there's multitudes of levels of fractalization. What I want to do from that horrible divorce and me feeling like I'm not worthy is to take that cord back from that person, cut that energy cord, and rebuild my worth, so that my fractalization according to that other being doesn't even hold any fractal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is, it can go from A to Z in terms of how this fractal stuff happens. And it does interpenetrate timelines now. And so this is why it was so important with this girl to understand you were out of your body, creating and existing in 3 different places at one time. That's really not acceptable for the human version of myself. I can do it, but I need to land the plane back in here.
Yeah, you almost become, you have to be like a zombie, like, because you're not
Yes.
fully in there. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. But
Yeah,
again,
it's
it
a lot.
happens in other ways too. So explaining that makes more sense to me, for
Yeah.
sure.
So it was a doozer. I mean, I do have to say, I was a little floored myself, because I never know,
Where are you?
yeah, I mean, oh, trust me. I mean, when I'm doing the actual work, I'm traversing the multiverses, trying to figure out where the heck that fractal is. Like, what are you doing out there? It's an interesting feeling. And what's so fun when you do that work is the client actually feels the incoming energy. They feel it like something just flew into me. Almost every time they're like, I just felt this thing like boom into my body. And I'm like, yeah, that's a piece of your soul. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
So really super cool. So then that is that whole version that I had with the client. Then, as you brought up, and I want to go into further on your end, is this idea of plant medicine being helpful in dietary needs and supplements, etc. And so you went down to Sedona and had the pleasure of meeting a plant woman.
Yeah, I did. Oh gosh, when was it? Like April of last year. And um she's the shaman of the mountain. She actually, you can look her up online.
Cool.
Teague Eskelson. And then also Angela Peterson is who she was with. But I had never gone to somebody who was plant medicine before, and it was very similar in energy work, but different in ways that she was able to go really deep quickly to my wounds,
Mm-hmm.
and identify different wounds. And she would ask questions that were really just like you asked questions, but there were some really like just hard hitting questions, like right out of
Mm-hmm.
the gate, that it took me just a minute or two to get in line with that. But when I got to the healing piece of it, when you talk about purging, she actually, you lay on the table. I had COVID, and I was still struggling a little bit with my lungs. I had a little congestion that I just couldn't seem to get rid of. And she had me lay on my side and cough so deep that
Mm-hmm.
I would like throw up phlegm and
Yep.
stuff. And it was bringing the spores of whatever that virus, bringing it out of my lungs. And so I did that for a period of time after seeing her too, to continue to bring out and clear out the lungs. And it was really like, it was like you were talking about, it gets pretty violent. Your whole
Yep.
body is involved in that. But she also was able to retrieve a part of my soul that was hanging out there.
Yep.
And it was my corporate soul. And it was really funny. She goes, God, I hate the guy that's the guardian of the corporate stuff. He's such a pain, he's just
Oh,
really tough.
that's
And I was laughing because I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, I had to get a piece of this was time for you to bring this piece that you gave away to the corporate world of
oh
your
my
soul
God.
back into your body. And I had felt something like, I just felt more complete after she finished that, for sure. But, going through the whole body, there was more hands-on, there was pushing, there was pulling and digging deep into, like my gut area. There was something that was what was it? It was really crazy, like um, it was almost like a rod or something that they had to remove that was part of a wound that I had. And so it was really
Let me interrupt.
physical.
So there wasn't technically a rod inside of Kim. What that means is that was an energy-based rod in her template. So we hold things from past lives that may have been real in that past life, but energetically, when we pass life empath that, we take it in the template. Okay.
Yeah, so
So,
it's not an actual metal rod or
right,
anything. It's a,
right.
but there is a
But
wound
still hurts.
that
Yep.
they were clearing and healing.
Cool.
But very physical. And another part of that was, um, because, talking about diet with them and plants, it was basically, they recommended kind of the Whole30 for me, like do more vegetables, keep the proteins, that kind of thing. And it wasn't like selling me supplements or doing any of that kind of work. It was really a physical experience in healing
Hmm.
those wounds, and then, gave me some ideas on how to work through some of those wounds to finally put them in a place where I could release them. So it was
That's great.
fascinating, really
Yeah.
fascinating. And she trained under that guy, that Elliot Cohen.
Alan,
Um,
I think his name.
Elliot Cohen is the plant spirit medicine
Was
guy.
it Elliot? Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
think he, I think he just, I think he just died.
Yeah. That's what you said. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. But
Yeah.
he talks about his journey in understanding plant medicine in that
Yeah.
book.
And he does a lot, he
Yes.
did a lot of plant medicine. I know that he did, and he does talk about ayahuasca and all the shrooms and all the psychedelics in his book also. So again, there's no right or wrong to any of this. It's what your body wants to do and what you want out of it. My purpose in bringing it forward for this podcast is to just help people understand that energetically you might be taking on a lot more than you think you're taking on. And if you come out of those journeys and you're not feeling like you're completely yourself, it's critical for you to find another sort of a practice or a practitioner to get you back into whatever you went out of. I mean,
Right.
it's just way too much going on out there right now. So yeah. Yeah. Ayahuasca is an interesting thing. Like I said, my own ego always wants to experience it. And I believe a lot of people use psychedelics to get to their guides, to get to their higher self, to get to their God source, their soul, and out into the cosmos. And that's awesome if that's what you want to do that. I have studied and worked very hard on my own container for so many years because I wanted to do it on my own. And so when we were in Peru, we were at an ayahuasca retreat, and it was super funny because I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, because the people would like make these paintings of their experiences, and they were all over the hallways and all over the whole gift shop was filled with them. And I was with my sister. I'm like, I've seen that. I've done that. I've seen that. And the girl behind the counter goes, good God, woman, how much ayahuasca do you do? And I go, I don't. I am ayahuasca. I just do it myself. And so that is an arrogance. We all have the capability. We all have the ability for plant medicine. So I went out into the jungle on that trip. And this is my own tag on trip after Peru when I do my clients. And I sat in the jungle and I asked ayahuasca to come forth and to download me so that I could use that frequency, because it's a Davic realm. It's a realm. It's an entity. It's a gatekeeper. It is an essence and a body. And so you can also, if you choose, you can download ayahuasca and you can get that connection to it. And I'm telling you, when I sat on that balcony, I was all by myself. I don't even know how long I was on that balcony. And I was so sucked into the trees, and down there in the jungle, they're just crazy trees. I was in the trees. I could feel the trees breathing. I could feel everything. The pulse of the actual whole entire jungle, you could feel it. I felt ayahuasca come across the land almost like a foreboding, kind of like a smoke moving along, because again, it is shadow work. I felt unbelievable amounts of ayahuasca and never have drank or eaten anything. So we do, if we choose, have the capacity to play it that way as well. Neither one is better or worse. It's just all personal choice. So I just thought it was super cool to bring that up. And I do believe with this 2D realm, meaning the plant and animal kingdom is in the second dimensional realm. This is an important realm for us right now, and it is activating, and our plants are waking up. And you can start to get way more information just by touching a tree. You don't have to smoke it or drink it. You can actually just touch a tree and get downloaded information. And so I encourage any listeners to play out there in nature, play in the plant and the animal kingdom, ask for the assistance and the connection, because most of the times these Davic realms need to have your permission, and your permission comes from asking. And so this is fun stuff if you choose to play that way. And it's creative imagination, right?
It
It's
is.
cool.
It is. And I the other side of the plant medicine without the psychedelics is so intriguing. And I know we have a friend in Sedona that was actually training through some of this, our masseuse friend. And so,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I know that you just went to her recently, and some
Yep.
of the work that she's now doing is based on some of that type of training, the plant medicine.
Yep. Yeah.
So, which is really cool. I'm glad to see her, evolving through all of that. So,
And again, take what resonates, I mean, find the practitioner or the practice or the drug or the whatever that really resonates for you, because not everybody's going to ever journey the same. It is all about how you do it and how you choose to do it and how you go into it. And I do encourage you to use your imagination. If you're not using anything that is assisting you in terms of your frequency, meaning anything hallucinogenic, if you're doing it straight up, use your imagination as much as you possibly can, because the imagination supports the third eye, which then supports the information coming in. What we do as humans is, oh, that's silly. I don't want to think about that.
oh
That's
my God,
dumb. And then we shut it off.
I just got
Yep.
tingles all through my scalp right now.
Your head's tingling away. So activate that with creative imagination and joy, and that's half the fun, right?
It is. It's very
Cool.
fun.
Well,
Yeah.
awesome. I just want to share that one because that was a doozer. Like I said, we can always learn from all of our client experiences, and they allow me to share them. So we can, again, take what resonates. So, all right, cool. All righty. Until next time, on behalf of Kim and I, thank you so much for joining us. Like and share these videos if you choose to, and check out my website at sworthley.com if you would like to also have more information. Thanks so much. And until next time, Cosmic Vibes.
Bye.
Bye.